One of the things that happened in Syria was when ISIS was really thick and heavy and really heavy-handed in that area and controlling of that area, they were destroying as many ancient artifacts as they could that they felt was completely opposed to their Islamic worldview. So one of the things that they destroyed was a temple of Baal built by the Romans during the Roman Empire, which was still there, and the archway that represented the gateway going into the temple. Now, they destroyed it. It used to be a huge tourist attraction. You know, like you can go to Israel today and there's stuff from 2,000 years ago. And people come and they see it. Well, Syria and other parts of the Middle East, Turkey is a big tourist area, the Mediterranean. Syria had some tourist attractions. That was one of them, the ancient Temple of Baal built by the Romans. Well, ISIS came in, started destroying everything they could get their hands on. Christian, pagan, didn't matter, anything. That was one of the things they destroyed. This was in Palmyra, Syria, okay? Now, the archway, they left for a while, but then eventually they destroyed that too. So what happened is this group of people, and I can't remember the name of the group, but again, this was carried in mainstream media because it was announced they were going to first bring it to New York City. But this group of people, kind of under the guise of archaeology and historical preservation, and I say under the guise, I think some of them were very sincere about that. In other words, they were just infuriated by these ancient relics of tourist attraction and ancient history that were just summarily destroyed, okay? And so they wanted to try to recreate them. Well, recreating the whole Temple of Baal was a little too big of a project, but they did recreate what's called the Palmyra Arch, or the archway, the Baal archway. Now, what that represents, by the way, the replication is 11 tons and it's 5 stories tall.
Wow.
So, I mean,
that's big.
Yeah, and it's to scale. Yeah, it's not just some, like some little 8-foot arch that you walk through. No, this is a huge dedication to Baal worship. And the way the thing was originally structured is that this archway represented literally a portal entering from one dimension to the next. Now, I know people say, well, that sounds like science fiction. Well, actually, there's, if you study of quantum mechanics and all of that, I mean, we understand that there are multiple dimensions of reality. The Word of God speaks of that as well. But the Baal worship, Satan literally put it upon the hearts and minds of the worshipers to build this arch. So you had, before you could approach the temple, you had to go through there, and you were representing, I'm now sanctifying myself. I'm coming into the presence of Baal. You know, it's everything God does, Satan perverts and copycats and mimics and counterfeits. Mm-hmm. So the temple, on the Temple Mount, you know, there was the outer courts, and then the inner sanctuary, then the Holy of Holies, and the priest had to prepare themselves as they came, and then only one priest could go into the Holy of Holies. Well, see, Satan kind of replicates all of that. So he's got the archway where you have to come through that first, and then you go in. All right, so what they did was they rebuilt and replicated the arch. Then in 2016, it was announced, it was in early 2016, I think January, February, something like that. New York Times headline article, other world publications, national publications, Washington Post. The Temple of Baal is coming to Times Square. That was the headline, something very close to that. I'm paraphrasing, but that literally was that. The Temple of Baal will be erected in Times Square. Well, that headline, you know, really infuriated a lot of people. There was an outcry. I mean, the whole evangelical Christian community said, what? And then even people in New York City, even if they weren't believers or, you know, Bible-believing Christians, they were kind of freaked out by that. So there was such an outcry that they backed off and said, no, well, we'll do something else. We won't do that. But so what happened was they changed the wording, because it really wasn't the Temple of Baal, but it was the archway that represented coming into the presence of Baal. So what they did, just a few months later, they opened with this production in London, okay? Now, their headline was, we want to take this on a world tour to show the world this relic that we've had to recreate to show you what, you know, nasty ISIS did. And then their theme was, because this represents freedom. Well, if you go back into the ancient historical writings of the worship of Baal, that's right. That's exactly what it represents. So again, hiding in plain sight. This represents freedom. And then they said it represents victory. And then they said this will show that ISIS can never win. Well, an arch to Baal is representative that ISIS cannot win? That didn't even make sense. No. But what they did was, they couldn't get it into New York City. And by the way, it wasn't the Temple of Baal, but that's what the headline said, and that's what everybody reacted to. It was this archway. So they opened it in London, the #1 economic capital of the European Union then, before Brexit started, and also #1 or #2 economic capital of the world. New York City and London are constantly back and forth on that. And so they opened it there. And again, your audience is probably thinking, well, what's the big deal? It's just a little historical artifact. And London, of course, one of the great major cities of the world. Why not? Okay. But here's where the thing gets creepy. They opened it. They aligned the opening and the unveiling of it to correspond with Beltane, Beltane. Your viewers can look all of that up, and that literally translates to the fires of Baal. And it is an internationally recognized celebration of Baal. It's their holiday. It's like a
Halloween.
It's like a Halloween, if you will.
Okay.
And so in the fires of Baal, Beltane, that's what the celebration is called. That goes back to the fires of infant sacrifice in the Old Testament. Beltane, that's what it means. So they unveiled this thing in honor. Now you say, well, maybe they didn't know what they were doing, but just watch. But they unveiled this thing in honor of Baal and the fires of Baal on the day of Beltane in London, the economic capital of the world and of the European Union, and we know how all those might tie into prophecy. And so here it is. There's the first unveiling. They tried to do it in New York City first. Well, what's in New York City? Well, the United Nations, Ground Zero, another economic capital of the world. If not #1, it's #2. I mean, right there with London. So they opened it in London. They kind of stilled the waters back in America. Then they redid the headline, and they said, the Palmyra Arch. They didn't even put the word Baal in it. The Palmyra Arch, the historical artifact, will be on display in New York City. And everybody went, oh, that's cool. You see?
It's like bringing a Ramesses from ancient Egypt display through and coming through through the museums and all that.
That's right. So, but then what they did, they took the same thing that everybody reacted. They bring it to New York City, home of the United Nations. Now, I'm emphasizing this because it's going to go a couple of other places too on this world tour. In every place, I'll go ahead and give it away, every place they take it is a globalist economic financial power center, which is what Baal worship is all about. Power and wealth and freedom.
Like this video? Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Watch the full episode of Shabbat Night Live this Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. See you then.